The Senate Committee on Natural Resources will now come to order. Will the Secretary please call roll?
Senator Flores.
Present.
Senator Hansen.
Here.
Senator Cochia.
Here.
Chair Pazina.
Present.
Senator Scheibel.
Thank you so much. There are 5 members present, so we do have a quorum. Before we begin, as we do have a wonderful crowd today, and I'd like to say thank you to all those who came on behalf of Mining Day, I'd like to provide some general housekeeping reminders. Be sure to mute laptops and turn off cell phones, otherwise our vice chair will answer any phones that begin to ring. The public is advised that during meetings, legislators and staff are using laptops to view bills and exhibits, not for personal reasons. So, if you see us looking, please know that this isn't a sign of inattention or disrespect. Please note that we'll be requiring everyone to submit exhibits in an electronic format the day before the meeting. A few reminders about testifying before the committee. Please do sign in by the table at the door. Give the committee secretary your business card if you have one prior to testifying. Even if you're not testifying, you may want to sign in so that there's a record of who's interested in a particular bill in case the committee needs to contact you at a later time. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state and spell your name and share your affiliation, if any, for the record. Then you may turn off the microphone each time you've completed speaking. If you have handouts for the committee, you're asked to provide 10 hard copies to the committee secretary for use by the public. We will be taking public comment at the end of each meeting, and I'll be limiting public comment to 2 minutes per person in order to ensure that everyone gets an opportunity to speak. Please feel free to provide any additional comments in writing to the committee secretary so that they may be added to the record. Today, we will be hearing one bill, Senate Bill 76, and in honor of Mining Day here in the legislature, we'll be receiving presentations from the Nevada Mining Association and the Nevada Division of Minerals. We're going to begin today with our hearing. I'll now open the hearing on Senate Bill 76, and Senator Neal, welcome. Please proceed when you're ready.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you for hearing my bill, and I will be presenting SB 76. I'm Senator Dina Neal. I want to give some opening remarks before I get into the actual bill language. I know this bill has brought some interesting conversation about what is PFAS. Senator Hansen said he's going to try to make me spell it. However, that's not going to occur in this hearing. All right. So PFAS, they're a group of man-made chemicals that include several pieces, PFOA, PFAS, GenX, and many other chemicals. EPA has basically moved to have a strategic plan on these particular chemicals, and their plan dates from 2021 to 2024. However, just because of that recent strategic plan doesn't mean that these chemicals have not been around. From the research that I've had or read over, they've been around since as early as 2002. Some of the most significant research started in 2007, and as the years went on, they're started to gain more and more interest in these what is called forever chemicals. PFAS, they're a large class of synthetic organic compounds that basically are used in several industries by manufacturers. They repel oil and water. You can find them on surface treatments for soil stain, water resistance, textiles, papers, metal, food, packaging, and also some juvenile products. It's been stated that there are not a lot of states that have moved legislation in this space. And if you've heard that as a committee, that's not true. There have actually been several actions that have happened. Either there have been laws, there have been agencies that have moved regulations, or there have been lawsuits. So for example, Maine has been the most expansive in what they have done. They passed a law in 2021, and basically they banned all new products that had PFAS in it, and it was considered a landmark moment. Their bill will take effect in 2030. The next state that has passed a bill was Colorado. Colorado passed a bill enacting food packaging, cosmetics, firefighting foam, or textiles, and that is what I built my bill off of. In addition to Colorado, there's also been legislation passed by Hawaii, California, Washington State, and I believe one other state that I don't have in my notes. But what has happened on those states that have passed legislation is that they tried to focus on narrow targeting versus the expansive piece of legislation that Maine did. They've either picked fire foam, they picked cosmetics, they picked juvenile products, they picked textiles, but everyone tried to go into a more targeted action. The agency actions where some states have actually empowered their regulators to move has been in Washington State. In Washington State, they allowed their Department of Ecology to pass PFAS regulations within 3 years. And basically, the regulations limited the manufacturers by targeting specific products and trying to restrict their actual use within the market. Most of the bills that have passed some have been Democrat, some have had co-sponsors of Republicans, but there's been a mix of bipartisan legislation. In Michigan, they passed PFAS regulations to focus on PFAS contamination in Michigan. For example, the regulators crafted rules over several years on PFAS compounds in drinking water, groundwater, and surface water, and they brought together 7 state agencies to form the Michigan Action Response Team known as MPART. In addition, Florida has also passed a bill requiring the state's Department of Environmental Protection to establish rules by 2025 to target cleanup levels of PFAS if the EPA has not set a national standard. And so I was bringing all of that up because I wanted to put on the record that Nevada and this bill is not unique. Other states are having a conversation about PFAS and the fact that they're forever chemicals that are being found in humans, and they are causing significant harm to individuals such as cancer, conditions with the liver, enhanced puberty, and other hormonal issues. There are several reports on EPA's website where you can go and look up the chemical report and assessment that they've actually had that is peer-reviewed, where they examined the chemicals and their effects, and that was recently in 2021, where they issued a statement about peer-reviewed research around the harmful effects of forever chemicals. And with that being said, it's our job as the government to protect people. Sometimes when we're protecting people, we're on the opposite side of business, but we have to find the balance between what is going on with the contaminants that are actually in our environment. And I will go ahead with that statement to go into the bill. And so SB 76 targets and tries to get into some of the common places where we have found PFAS to be evident in certain materials. So if you read through section 2 through section 5, you will see mostly definitions of the adult mattress, carpet, children's product, that section will be amended, and then when you go to section 7, you will go to cookware. And after that, in section 8, you land on cosmetics, which is defined as anything that is rubbed into or introduced, poured on, sprinkled, or sprayed on that is applied to the human body. And then in section 8, subsection 2, it then identifies what that term does not include. Then in section 9, we go to the fabric treatment. I kept trying to figure this one out because everybody grew up with Scotchgard, and I kept trying to figure out when I went to the EPA, has Scotchgard caused any kind of long-term effect by having it in my household, having it on my couch. I remember my mom going in and spraying Scotch Guard to prevent the Kool-Aid stains that we habitually would find ourselves on our couch, or I guess in the old days, our families would just put that hard plastic where you would stick and your body would never be removed from it because your parents decided that they were going to keep their couches forever. And so in this case, we actually have sprays that, because they're a water repellent or an oil repellent, they have PFAS in it, and that PFAS is actually harmful to us. The bill continues to lay out food packaging, that if you have food packaging that is water resistant, then that food packaging has some element of PFAS in it. And so there is the bill tries to deal with, if you are intentionally manufacturing any of these items, then the idea is for you to, number one, label, restrict, and limit the use of the PFAS actually being used and manufactured in your products. The bill goes on to talk about the packaged components when you look at Section 1314. And then when you go to Section 16, it defines what the product is. Then it tells you what the exclusions are, which are Section 16 sub 2, that it does not include any drug, medical device, biologic, and there is also an amendment on this section that I have accepted, and they'll come up in neutral. Then Section 17 talks about textile furnishing, upholstered furniture. And then the bill goes on to talk about, in Section 21, what we're telling a manufacturer to do. That a manufacturer shall not sell or offer for sale, distribute or sell or distribute for use in the state any product that fits into the following categories: the carpet, rugs, fabric treatments, food packaging, or children's product, which we will change to juvenile products. In Section 22, it talks about the cookware, and then goes on to explain the rest definitions of what is within cookware, what's the meaning. And then in Section 24, it talks about the effective date, where we have certain portions that would be effective in Section 25, Sections 1 to 23 is effective on January 1st of 2024, and then the later section 24 is effective on July 1st, 2024. And so with that, because I know how I feel when people talk to me and read an entire bill, I will open myself up for questions. But before the questions, I do have 3 amendments that I'm accepting. There's one amendment that is being presented from the chemical, I forget what the chemical organization is, but it's the strikeout of the existing statute, which I'm building this on. And so the reason why I want to take more time to examine that is because Assemblyman Howard Watts just passed the bill last session on removing PFAS from fire foam, and the amendment looked like it was striking out the existing law that he literally just passed in 21. And so I'm not necessarily open to that idea, and I want to examine that amendment a little bit further. So if you saw it or if you were presented with it, that is why I haven't adopted it or interested in reviewing it at this moment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Senator Neal. Do we have any questions from the members? Senator Scheibel?
Thank you, and thank you for a thorough presentation. I appreciate you walking through the bill with us. And my question is surrounding these products. We use them in very different ways. You know, the way you use cookware is not the same way that you use a rug. And so I'm wondering if you can just give me a little bit more background on the health effects. Are PFAS affecting people through, like, I'm imagining if you cook with cookware, then you ingest them. That is bad. With the carpet, is the problem by touch that you can be affected by the negative effects, or is it environmental and you breathe it in, or how does the contaminant go from the material to the human body? I guess is my question.
That's a good question. So, from the research that I found, it seems to be a couple of ways, right? Exposure over a long period of time where it gets on your skin. It also, and that's when I was reading what the EPA put out there, they talked about exposure of PFAS actually on the actual skin, and that's how it can seep through the membrane. It can be found in the environment, in the water. It can also be found in the blood of the population. So it's my understanding that when, like, if you have the stainless, we all have that non-stick cookware, that when you heat it up, there's a certain amount of the chemical that seeps into the food, and then ultimately is then ingested by the human being. And then it's called a forever chemical because it takes a really, really long time to make it out of your body. One thing I read in Hawaii, when they did their study on groundwater, they found that the PFAS was actually in the fish from the groundwater, and that the ingestion of that fish was then made it into the human consumption, which I thought was super interesting. And so there's a lot of research out there on, I guess, the different ways that folks are being exposed, but some of the most recent study came from 2021. Some of the prior studies that you see, like in 2016, 2007, there's been this long examination about PFAS, PFOA, Gen X chemicals, and other kind of chemicals that have been out there, and how much of a contaminant they were. But the definitive research is really on the EPA's website, where they did the peer review study in their strategic plan.
Thank you so much, Senator. And Senator Flores.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that presentation, Senator. What does PFAS stand for? Can you spell that real quick?
No.
No, I was just curious, as you were getting ready for the bill presentation and as you were researching this, how many manufacturers do you know are engaged in this space now in Nevada? And then what do we know on the safety for the folk that are working behind the scenes, right? So I'm imagining being in a factory. I'm imagining folk who are every day working with this material. What safety precautions are in place there now? Because I think it also would put into context what we're talking about. I imagine there's a lot of gear that they have to wear to be dealing with this type of material on a daily basis. So maybe that would give us some context too, and also just to understand who's in the space now.
Thank you for the question, Senator Dina Neal, for the record. I don't actually know the names of the manufacturers. I can only go by what the EPA has delineated for manufacturers. So what they have included is what I tried to include. I tried to not step out of the bounds of what EPA had already researched. And so they included manufacturers, including importers, processors, distributors, and users that dispose of or have containers that have PFAS in it. And so the categories really determine who those manufacturers are. So I can tell you that I didn't, who reached out to me. So there was, I guess, a toy manufacturer that reached out to me that we had a conversation about the amendment on that, the Colorado bill that I was mimicking, that I was including products that are affecting children versus juveniles. And so when you think about that, when you think about, they said that they wanted me to make sure I was excluding toys, but to have other products in there that juveniles use. And so that could be arranged. When we talk about pots, manufacturers, I don't even know the different names of manufacturers. I mean, I could think about it, but I thought about it when I was looking for non-stick non-stick cookware, and the only thing that I could find was stone pots that probably cost like $400. So I think about like Rachel Ray, Teflon, or not Teflon, but like Tefware. There's a range. I can't name them, but it's based on the categories that I have. That is how you would be able to delineate the manufacturers. I don't have a list, and I couldn't find a list on EPA's website. What I found was a list of chemicals, and I found out that they are starting to, I guess about a year ago, they opened their testing website where now they want to start to register all of these, I guess, entities.
Madam Chair, if I may have a follow-up. And again, just to continue the conversation, I know in trying to understand this myself, kind of went into a fun Dina digest of what's happening at the federal level and EPA. I'm not an expert by any means, and what minimal information I know, I want to put that caveat there, and hopefully you can kind of educate me on this. But in researching the EPA and understanding that, I know that there's been a whole host of discussions over the years that often EPA in its origin really was just industry regulating itself, right? So it was folk coming to the table, and they were the subject matter experts, and therefore were kind of setting the parameters. And then we've seen a whole host of issues supported by case law, wherein either intentionally or unintentionally, a industry that sometimes regulates itself could have problems because there may be a monetary incentive to not, or to consider something not toxic or dangerous, when in fact it could be. And there's a whole host of scenarios, and there's a lot of case law where that's happened. I make that point only to know if in your research and kind of engaging in this conversation here, if we had a similar scenario and that we realized that we needed to come in and kind of come into this space, because it's just hard for me that we haven't addressed it at a federal level and just taken a quick stance. And I just wanted to know where the conversation is at the federal level in really addressing it, if it's this dangerous, or why we see the necessity for the states to individually take action. Is there a stalemate at the federal level? If you could just kind of walk us through what's happening in that space.
Thank you for the question, Senator Dina Neal, for the record. I don't think there is a stalemate at the federal level. I think EPA wanted to take the time to research and get peer-reviewed data, and I think that's what's taken so long. I think there was always information that certain chemicals were harmful, and so what you have to realize that if you go and research on the EPA, there were a certain set of chemicals that phased out. Then they have a category of inactive, and now they have the new formed, I guess what you call the Gen X or PFAS, which then has PFOA and some other chemicals in it. And so as we phased out one set, then a new set came in. And then now realizing what the effect is under PFAS, now there's another conversation to phase those out and find alternatives to alternative chemicals that could be safe for human consumption. And so I think it also, one factor I would say is that during the I would say 2016 forward, we then also had a shift in leadership also. But EPA has set apart and taken the time to say that they have a roadmap, that their goal is to deal with the groundwater, their goal is to restrict the actual use of the chemicals in the environment, that they are looking at different ways statutorily that they can regulate and engage, and other states have taken on the task based on that research to then do different things in their states. And so I didn't read anything where there was an inaction, but I think it's a hard thing because it's everywhere, right? And when you have a chemical that's everywhere, then it's very hard to take it out of the market and take it out of the mainstream, because at the end of the chemical, right, or the product is a person who is using it. And so you have to make sure that the research that you have established proves the toxicity, right? And so I kept looking and looking and looking, saying, okay, well, do we actually have a technical fact sheet, right, on the toxic assessment of the Gen X chemical? What's a Gen X chemical? And trying to really understand and break it down and understand, well, how can something be so harmful and been around since 2007, and if it's killing people, right? And so that I kind of arrived at, it takes a long time to research. It takes a long time to see the effects on human beings. And sometimes if you test a mouse and you find out that a mouse gets a cancer, right, from PFAS, are you really going to accept that? Or do you need to see a human effect? You know what I'm saying? So when I looked at all of the research, a lot of the research was animal research. And it was showing, a rat was tested and they had cancer, they had liver malfunction. But we see those things, but I don't think those things resonate with us, because we're saying, well, what about the human being, right? What's the effect on us? That's what I think has been the slowdown, and I think that's why it's an issue. But we've invested. There's $2 billion that's currently being invested in infrastructure law, the funding for PFAS and emerging contaminants in drinking water. So clearly the government, the federal government, is investing more into the space and trying to figure out how to regulate it and restrict the use.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further questions from the committee? Senator?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess my only question would, I can't spell it either. So anyway, we're gonna make it against the law. What's the enforcement arm? How are we going to enforce it?
So it doesn't actually have the enforcement piece in here. It basically says stop producing it. And that was what I was questioned about when I brought up the bill. It has the portion in here where it says it knowingly violates and is subject to a civil penalty of not to exceed 1,000. And that's nominal. That's the only enforcement. I got a call when this bill dropped saying, are you now going to force like the Department of Conservation and other agencies to then go and check manufacturers? And the more that we started talking about what that fiscal note impact would be, I was just like, I'll pick this fight and I'll wait on the other fight, right? Because I know money, people believe we're abounding in money, where you can just go and tell an agency, hey, bring me $1 million fiscal note to go check manufacturers' products. I don't think that that's a real stage that we're in. So the most that I have is in Section 23, which is the civil penalty.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much.
I have a follow-up to Senator Goycochea's question. Wouldn't this also open up the avenue for civil litigation now that there's, going to be a statute on the books that says that you can't sell these things or manufacture these things?
Probably. Senator Dina Neal, for the record. Yes, and there have been other states that have engaged in lawsuits on the intentional use of PFAS in those products. And so it would, if it was found out that there was a willful and knowing, but willful and knowingly is it's a high standard, because you have to prove that someone intentionally placed that product into a stream of commerce and they knew that PFAS was in there. And so that's probably the opposition that you're going to hear on this bill, is that other states have extended the timeline, that the Colorado bill that I built this on they had 3 different dates. They had, I believe, 24, 25, and 26. But they also had a much larger target. They were going after much more than what I'm going after in this bill. And so that's why I scaled down the implementation, because I knew that our surrounding states had already touched cosmetics, had already touched carpet, had already touched textiles, and had already touched cookware.
Thank you so much. I had one last question. Is there any part of this bill, and I apologize because I could be missing it, which touches on notification for those Nevadans that already have PFAS products in their home?
Thank you for that question, Senator Dina Neal. For the record, I do not believe that there is any notification in here. There is, no. No.
Thank you so much. Any further questions from the committee? All right. Seeing none, next we'll hear testimony in support of SB 76. As a reminder, we'll be limiting testimony in support, opposition, and neutral to 2 minutes per person. However, if there's any additional testimony, you can submit that in writing to the secretary so that it may be added to the record. And thank you so much for testifying.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Patrick Donnelly, Great Basin Director at the Center for Biological Diversity. I can't spell it either, but we do support this bill. My colleagues in the Environmental Health Department at my organization tell me this is a very important next step toward regulating these toxic chemicals. So thank you to the bill sponsor, and please move on this bill.
Thank you so much. Any further testimony in support of SB 76? Okay, great. Anyone else here in Carson City who'd like to testify in support? BPS, is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to provide testimony in support of SB 76?
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in support of SB 76, please press *9 now on your phone to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support, please press *9 now.
Thank you so much. Any further testimony?
Caller with the last 3 digits of 023, we can see you're unmuted. Please continue.
Yes, is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to provide testimony?
Caller with the last 3 digits of 023, we can see you're unmuted. Is it possible that your phone is muted?
No, hello, I'm here.
Please continue.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please continue.
Okay, Chair Pazina and members of the committee, my name is Barry Levinson, a volunteer member of Sierra Club's Legislative Committee. I am also a medical doctor specializing in internal medicine. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you so much. Please continue with your testimony.
Okay, Chair, hello, I'm here. Hi, Chair Pazina and members of the committee. My name is Barry Levinson, a volunteer member of Sierra Club's Legislative Committee.
Yes, please continue. Thank you so much. Do you have testimony you'd like to share
I
in
am
support?
also- Yes.
Please continue.
And a chemical engineer. On behalf of the Sierra Club and our more than 30,000 members and supporters statewide, I'm speaking in support of Bill SB 76. SB 76 would prohibit the sale of intentionally added PFAS chemicals to a variety of products, including food packaging, and would require labeling of PFAS-coated cookware. This is important because these forever chemicals that take many decades to break down have a multitude of potential human health effects, including decreased fertility, impaired immune function, increased risk for certain cancers, and developmental effects in children. Pregnant women and children are at a higher risk of exposure to PFAS chemicals per body weight. PFAS chemicals are also known to harm wildlife. Multiple states such as California, Colorado, Hawaii, Pennsylvania, and Maine have already enacted restrictions or bans on intentionally added PFAS chemicals in consumer and industrial products and in food packaging. Several fast food corporations have switched to PFAS-free packaging. A federal bipartisan amendment to ban these chemicals in food packaging passed a U.S. Senate committee last year. Continuing to produce and use PFAS chemicals is simply too great a risk to accept for both human health and the health of wildlife and our environment. This legislative session is an excellent opportunity for Nevada to begin our PFAS-free journey. For these reasons, we urge you to support SB 76. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. BPS, is there anyone additional on the phones who'd like to provide testimony in support of SB 76?
Thank you, Chair. If you've recently just joined us, we are still in support of SB 76. To testify in support, please press star 9 now on your phone. Caller with the last 3 digits of 733, please continue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 733, we can see you're unmuted. Is it possible you're muted on your end?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please continue.
Hello?
Yes, please continue.
My name is Fermina Stevens. I am with the Western Shoshone Defense Project in Elko, Nevada. The Defense Project over the past 30 plus years has been striving to protect the land, air, water, and sun from the harmful effects of any toxic chemicals to our environment. We are in support of this bill as it seems to be on the right track of protecting the land, air, water, and sun from harmful effects of these forever chemicals are not good for anything. So yes, we're in support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. BPS, anyone else additionally who'd like to give testimony in support?
Chair, you have no more callers wishing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll hear testimony in opposition of SB 76. Is there anyone here in Carson City who'd like to testify in opposition?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Very good to see you. For the record, Trey Abney with the Abney Tauken Group here today representing the American Chemistry Council, the organization that Senator Neal referred to a few minutes ago. First of all, we want to thank Senator Neal for working with us on this issue. Before this session ever gavelled in, we were on a Zoom call with her, walking through her ideas for the bill, and we appreciate that. Once the language dropped a few weeks back, the team at American Chemistry Council have been diligently working their way through it to figure out what the bill does. Just to be clear, we do not oppose the idea behind this bill. We do want to just clarify, we don't want to delete the language that Mr. Watts proposed last session. In fact, we worked with Mr. Watts on that bill. We just want to modify it a bit. Now, in the senator's defense, we just received amendment language this morning, I think right about when she was about to walk on the Senate floor. So sitting here today, the amendment that we offered to her is technically an unfriendly amendment. She has not had a chance to look through it, and we just want to work with her on this language. We did not submit this amendment to the committee. We wanted to work with the senator first to see if we can come to some type of agreement. And so we hope we can do that. But again, we appreciate the idea behind this bill. just have some thoughts. And we have a whole team of health and safety scientists that are a lot smarter than me that we can get on the phone with Senator Neal and work on this. So we thank you for your time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian Wachter, Senior Vice President of the Retail Association of Nevada. I, too, appreciate the opportunity to come before you. Given the 2-minute timeline, what I'd like to talk about is several of the sections that we have a few issues in. The first section is Section 12, the definition of manufacturer. We have had a great conversation with Senator Neal, but the lines where a brand is affixed to the product, and then we also have some questions and some clarification that might be needed in terms of importing. As many of you know, our retailers operate many marketplaces where you can purchase and facilitate purchases from third-party vendors. Those vendors often utilize warehouse space from those marketplaces, and so if the first place that product is imported to becomes that marketplace warehouse just for the purpose of storing, that could be problematic and would include then that marketplace as a manufacturer under this bill. Section 15, the actual definition, and this is, I think, where dovetails with the ACC's position, is we do think that definition is overly broad. We understand that Assemblyman Watts was working on that definition in his bill last time. However, that definition captures a lot. There's a reason the bill has to exclude prescription drugs. It's because you're probably maybe taking a prescription drug that includes a version of this chemical or one of the chemicals. We're actually talking about hundreds and thousands of different chemicals that fall under this umbrella. And so while we understand that the definition that the senator used appears in other bills and other places, and certainly in NRS, we do believe taking a look at that definition and narrowing that definition would lead the bill to be more easily to comply with. Lastly, we would look for changes in Section 5 in terms of the implementation date. We appreciate that Senator Neal certainly excluded a lot of manufacturers and a lot of products from the bill. However, that does not change the fact that those manufacturers and those retailers who are now caught up in that language are going to have to...
Thank you so much. Time was up about 20 seconds ago, and I gave you a little while to finish. Thank you very much. Yes, we do have a question for you.
Thank you, and maybe this will give you an opportunity to kind of sneak in some of those extra remarks. So it's a double-edged sword, though, but caveat. So I was curious to know, Senator Neal mentioned that this is something that's happening nationwide. Different states are taking on the issue. There's the consensus that obviously there's some harm here and we need to address it. I was just curious to know if you've had an opportunity through your kind of hat to speak to manufacturers in other states and seeing some of these kind of concerns that you're presenting now come to fruition in a different way, or maybe you haven't had an opportunity, so it might not be a fair question, but I was just curious to see if you've seen what's happening in other states where this is an issue through your kind of business hat on. Please.
Brian Wachter with the Retail Association of Nevada, to you and through you, Madam Chair, to Senator
Please
Flores.
go direct. Thank you.
I appreciate. Thank you, ma'am. We have had that opportunity to look both at manufacturers out of state, as well as manufacturers that we have in state, especially our smaller retail manufacturers. And what we've found is that many of the provisions that Senator Neal, and not all of them, there are a couple in California that have already come online, but many of these provisions have not been actually we haven't hit that implementation date. I would direct you to Maine, who was kind of first out of this. They have had significant problems in Maine. To the defense of Senator Neal, she has removed a lot of those problematic particular issues, but the only real-world example we have of manufacturers having to comply is in Maine, and they have had to exempt a lot of manufacturers that they have found that can't comply with that. And that's part of the reason that we are looking at the implementation date is those retailers and manufacturers that are included in the bill. We're talking a global supply chain of having to make sure that all those components, those vendor components, and where those products are at, as well as the products that are currently already in the pipeline. Christmas for 2023 has already been ordered. In many opportunities, it's already being manufactured. And so we have a lot of product in those pipelines that we retailers are going to be stuck with come January. So we do have real world examples, and they are not great.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you so much again for your testimony. Is there anyone else here in Carson City who would like to testify in opposition of SB 76? BPS, is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to provide testimony in opposition to SB 76?
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in opposition of SB 76, please press star 9 now on your phone to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in opposition of SB 76, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers wishing to speak in opposition at this time.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone here in Carson City who wishes to testify in neutral on this bill?
Good afternoon, Chair Pazina, members of the committee. My name is Jimmy Lau. I'm the Vice President of Ferrari Reader Public Affairs representing Merck, Sharp, and Dome. As Senator Neal mentioned, we have an amendment that we've submitted. It's a friendly amendment on Nellis, which modifies Section 16 to add to the list of exemptions some specific federal authorizing statutes, which certain animal products are manufactured under, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Okay. Seeing none, thank you so much. Do we have anyone else who'd like to testify in neutral here in Carson City? BPS, anyone on the phone lines who'd like to testify in neutral?
If you would like to testify neutral on SB 76, please press star 9 now on your phone to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 014, please continue.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, for the record, my name is Erin Radin, and I'm the Director of State Government Affairs for the Toy Association. The Toy Association has a long history of leadership in toy safety, having helped develop the first comprehensive toy safety standard more than 40 years ago, and remains committed to working with medical experts, government, consumers, and industry on ongoing programs to ensure safe and fun play. Thank you for taking up this important issue. As the sponsor noted, there are many efforts across the country that address PFAS in a variety of products. We've been working with the sponsor to clarify that the bill applies to juvenile products and not to toys, and we want to thank Senator Neal for her openness to working on amendment language and crafting good public policy for the citizens of Nevada. I want to also note that we support the amendment offered by the American Chemistry Council. And with that, I want to thank you all for your time today, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, BPS. Anyone else on the phone lines who'd wish to testify in neutral?
If you recently just joined us, we are currently taking neutral testimony on SB 76. If you would like to testify neutral, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no more callers wishing to testify neutral at this time.
Thank you very much. With that said, Senator Neal, would you like to provide any closing remarks?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for closing remarks. I do want to mention something really quick. If you look at Maine passed the most extensive law out of all of the states. If you can literally go through all of the states that I mentioned, Maine, Hawaii, Washington, California, and just do California and PFAS, Hawaii and PFAS, and you can look and see exactly who has taken a narrow approach and what they've done around manufacturers. I have not done anything to the extent of what Maine did. Maine included all new products and basically banned them and then made their law effective in 2030. And so I will continue to work with the folks that have amendments that don't water down the intent of the bill. I will take note, I'm taking note of the fact that it doesn't have the notice provision in the bill. And I want to thank this committee for hearing this bill out today. This is my first time in NatRam. This is my first wading in the water on environmental issues, and it'll probably be the last. And so I really brought this issue forward because I learned that when I was buying cookware, I was buying cookware that could potentially poison me and my kids. It was like when I found out that tater tots had formaldehyde. It ruined my life. And so okay, I joke, but seriously. Thank you, Madam Chair, for hearing SB 76.
Thank you so much. I think you just ruined my life with that knowledge on the tater tots. I'll now close the hearing on SB 76. Thank you so much, Senator. And for those of you here for Mining Day, we gained a lot of new knowledge today on PFAS and tater tots. Next, we'll be receiving a presentation for Mining Day from the Nevada Mining Association. Presenters, welcome. Please come forward, press the mic button, identify yourselves for the record, and proceed with your presentation when ready.
Good afternoon, committee. My name is Nikki Bailey Lundahl. I am the Director of Government Affairs for the Nevada Mining Association. Happy Mining Day. As you can see, we are a full house. If everybody here for Mining Day could raise their hand. We're so proud to show the face of mining today to all of you in the building. Today I'll just be doing a presentation on the association with Joe Riney, our Vice President of Operations, and Kyle Davis, our environmental consultant, and Alan Biaggi, who doesn't fit at this table, but will be here to answer any questions for you after this presentation. What is the Nevada Mining Association? The Nevada Mining Association's mission is to unite, educate, advocate, and serve as the public voice of Nevada's modern mining industry. We have over 500 member companies representing every part of the mining supply chain: operators, exploration, suppliers, and individuals. Modern mining in Nevada. We have 10.3% of all U.S. non-fuel mineral production. The state produces 20 essential minerals critical to our daily lives, and in 15 of the 17 counties, we have active mining operations. The mining supply chain has a presence, though, in all 17 counties, and we generate about $14.8 billion in annual economic activity. Mines in Nevada, this is a great map to represent the different mines that we have throughout the state. Our people. I just updated this slide. We have over 38,000 families across Nevada that rely on the mining supply chain for employment throughout the state. And our average salary is $94,000 annually, plus benefits, healthcare, retirement, and sick leave. Healthcare isn't just for the miners themselves, but also the entirety of their family. And I would like to just say that that average salary isn't just for someone that has a college degree. That is the average salary for everybody within the industry, starting out in a haul truck all the way up the chain. And so I think that that's very important to show how important we think our miners are. We are essential to the Nevada, we are an essential Nevada industry. We're 1% of employment in the state, 1.9% of all sales and use taxes, 3.1% of the state general fund, and 4.1% of our state GDP. And here is a mine a slide going over that for you, saying 4.5 in Q1 of 2022. Our total estimated major taxes paid, $348.4 million. This does not include our mining education tax, which is the next slide. Our mining education tax in its inaugural year, combined with the net proceeds of minerals tax, which goes into $169.4 million. That was, as you know, that changed last session with AB 495, where all of those money will now go into the state education fund. Annual per pupil contribution is $344. The 10-year per pupil contribution would be $3,441, and that aggregates to $1.7 billion over 10 years. Now I'm going to hand it over to Joe Riney to talk a little bit about safety and health.
Good afternoon, Joe Riney, R-I-N-E-Y. In 2021, Nevada miners worked 28 million hours with one of the lowest statewide injury rates in the nation. Safety regulations are the minimum standard when it comes to mine operations, with most mine operators going far above and beyond the regulatory standards. Nevada leads in exploring technology that enhances safety and health, such as autonomous equipment, which is being utilized throughout the state to eliminate exposures to potential hazards. And then the collaborative environment that provided through the Nevada Mining Association allows federal and state regulators to come in and really have that direct conversation with mines and the mines to communicate with one another to move forward with a proactive rather than reactive manner of correcting potential issues. I want to talk a little bit about emergency response preparedness. Mine rescue team members train over 100 hours each year in preparation. Most are volunteer positions that miners participate in above and beyond their daily work activities. Mine rescue teams train in surface, underground, firefighting, hazardous material response, and carry EMT certifications. The Nevada Mining Association hosts several mock training events throughout the year. We want our miners to be prepared in case there is a situation where they have to react. Most times there are not, so that practice and mock preparation is really helpful for them. Most emergency response situations occur off the mine sites, assisting public motorists between the I-80 corridor going to Elko. There's not a lot of people out on the road there, so when somebody has an incident, car accident, blowout tire, any kind of incident, it's usually miners who show up first on scene. And then the NVMA works with members with the BLM and the Forest Service to respond to wildfires that occur in or near the mine footprints.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kyle Davis, and I appear today on behalf of the Nevada Mining Association. I think it's appropriate that I come in on this slide that you see here in front of you. Nevada, for many years, has been a clean energy leader, and I've worked with many of you in this committee, in this body, to expand our clean energy capacity in this state and really build on these new technologies. Many people don't know this, but it's very important for these new technologies, things like solar panels, electric vehicles, the minerals that build these technologies, we mine here in Nevada, and we have the opportunity to do so much more that really lead the clean energy revolution in this country from right here in Nevada. Now, people think of mining operations as big, and certainly when you're on a mine site, it certainly feels big. But when you look at the total land mass of Nevada, there are over 70 million acres of land in Nevada, and the total permitted mining acres is only about 200,000 acres. And you can see right there on the map the amount of land we're talking about 0.3% of the state's overall land area. Water is another important issue. Obviously, this committee knows a lot about water, and there's going to be a lot of water legislation to look at this session. I think it's important to look at when you see this chart that's in front of you, the amount of water that is consumptively used by mining operations. It's only about 8%, and that's only groundwater. That's the water that our operations encounter, and that's what we use for the various things that we may need water for on site. But it's only about 8% of the overall groundwater consumption in Nevada. So what you see here is a diagram of a couple of different types of pit lakes. Now, we've certainly heard about pit lakes in the past, and basically what happens here is the ore body that our operators are trying to access may exist below the water table. And so in order to access that ore body, if it's a surface mining operation, the operator will dig a pit and it will go below the water table. And so we need to get that water out of the way in order to access the ore body. So it's called dewatering that pit, where we pump that water out, but then put that right back into the ground nearby. And so this is a case where we're not utilizing that water, we're just moving it out of the way so that we can access the ore body. What you can see with this diagram, there's a couple different types of this in terms of how the groundwater flows, whether it flows through, whether it's a terminal pit lake. But I think it's important to understand that the water that exists in a pit lake after mining operations, and that's when that water will start to fill back in when those mining operations are over. That water still exists in the state water system. That is groundwater, and that is available for appropriation under state water law, just like any other groundwater. One new, relatively new component is, as we've discovered, that there is an evaporation component. Certainly, when you take that ground over from the top of the groundwater, and the state engineer did deal with this and did issue an order. So new pit lakes that are created do have to have a water right for the consumptive portion of that does evaporate. So how do we deal with pit lakes when they are created? So certainly in operation, some pits are backfilled, and then some are not. And that could be for many different cases, but in some cases you don't want to backfill that pit because you could create other problems by doing so. But this is an issue that we've talked about in the past, and we'll get into a little bit more on my next slide. But dealing with the issue of whether there can be a public access there. And in some cases, it may make sense, and that's what you see in that bottom picture. That is the Sparks Marina, which was an old gravel pit and has now become a great recreation resource for the people in northern Nevada. But in some cases, you may have steep walls. There may be erosion or water quality concerns that may need to be dealt with, and sometimes on a temporary basis, but sometimes it would be longer than that. So it needs to be done on a case-by-case basis. And I mentioned this is an issue that has come before this legislature before. In 2013, then Assemblyman David Bobzien brought a bill that required an evaluation of potential public access for existing and future pit lakes over 200 acres. And this is a bill where he worked with the industry as well as with environmental groups, and the law requires consultation with the land manager as well as the state regulatory agencies. And given where we are right now, no pit lakes are deemed acceptable for public access because of the conditions, but that is something that can be looked at as those conditions may change. Now, reclamation is a very important part of mining, and it is something that is required by law, and this industry worked with the state long ago to put into place reclamation laws in Nevada that really are the model of the nation and the world in terms of how we reclaim mine sites for a productive post-mining land use. So the companies themselves are responsible for this, and in order to ensure that they are responsible for this, they must post financial instruments in the event of a default so that the state and or federal entities can complete the work. So that makes sure that no matter what happens with that company, that mine site is going to be restored to a productive post-mining land use. And currently the state of Nevada holds about $3.4 billion in bonding, and that is updated every year. A new analysis is done to show how much it would cost to do this reclamation, and that when we make those updates, and those bonds do go up, so we make sure that keeps pace with inflation and cost of goods and everything that goes into that. I've talked about water and land reclamation, but obviously there's a number of other issues that we work on, and we work with our regulators at the state and federal level to ensure that laws are followed as they relate to air pollution, management of solid and hazardous waste, protection of wildlife, cultural resources, vegetation management, as well as cleanup of any spills and land contamination that may happen. So these are all things in which we work with our state and federal regulators to ensure that all regulations are followed. And you can see on this slide, we interact with a good portion of the state of Nevada. There are a number of agencies and boards up there that we come in contact with from time to time, and we certainly want to make sure that that our companies are being proactive, they're being responsive to our regulators, so that we ensure that everything is done as intended by this state. And this, of course, just covers the state agencies that have oversight responsibilities. This does not cover the federal agencies as well. And just to name a few of them, we also have the Mine Safety and Health Administration on the federal level. We have the Environmental Protection Agency, the Bureau of Land Management, and the Forest Service. And these are all agencies that we work collaboratively with as well.
Joe Riney for the record. I get the honor of talking about some of our programs that we have running throughout the state. So the first of those programs is Hope for Heat. Hope for Heat is a program that raises money for after-school all-stars and other various charities based on the temperature in Las Vegas. So when any day it's over 100, we will donate $100. Granite Construction will supplement that with another $30. And so it raises just money directly. We also run that program in the north, though that temperature is much lower. And then we've also got Mining Vegas for Talent, and this is a program that's near and dear to my heart. This program is created after AB 354, I believe, a number of years ago. It creates opportunity for some of the poverty-hit zip codes in the North Las Vegas area. So we specifically run the program out of North Las Vegas. We've partnered with Nevada Partners and Nevada Careers. We've built an onboarding system where folks can come in with absolutely no experience, and they can get fast-tracked right into the industry. We provide housing to help them get their feet on the ground, all of the training, and we've had about 20 people go through the program at this point. And those people are now making $100,000 plus a year. Each one, we've identified candidates who came in out of incarceration who are now being put forth to leadership training and taking supervisor positions at the mines. So it's a program we're very proud of, and we are looking to continue to scale. Last but certainly not least, we have the 360 internship program, which is a partnership between several mine operators and the Bureau of Land Management, where we take college students who are working on engineering or environmental degrees, anything mining related, and those candidates come in, they spend several weeks working for the BLM through the summer, and then they also work at a mine operation, which allows them to learn the pitfalls and the pros and cons of working on the federal service side along with the industry side. And then I said it was last but not least, and that was wrong, because we also have annual teacher workshops, which we've done for over 30 years in the north and in the south. So we take several hundred teachers through one of these workshops each and every year, and they get a free PDE credit. It doesn't cost them anything to attend. Take them out to a mine site and teach them about rocks and minerals.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Do we have any questions from the committee?
Thanks, Madam Chair. No, I just, it's a comment, no questions. I mean, you guys, we've discussed some of these issues at length. I represent a huge section of mining, and the importance to the rural economy just cannot be overemphasized. In fact, I do have a question for Kyle. Grew up in Lovelock, Core Rochester. How important is that mine in the 30 years it's been in existence for the city of Lovelock and Pershing County, I might add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kyle Davis for the record, through you to Senator Hansen, and thank you.
You can go direct. Thank you.
I knew you wouldn't let me get out of here without answering at least one question. But you bring up a very important point. I did grow up in Lovelock, and obviously Core Rochester is an important part of the community. They're always the first company that everybody in Lovelock goes to when they need, they have an event happening, looking for sponsorship. Core is always there to help out with those events, to help out with the schools. I know a lot of people that I went to high school with. They're still working at Core. They're still earning a great living. So it's really been embedded in the fabric of the community, and that was the case the entire time growing up there.
Thank you. And I can, Madam Chair, just so you know that I can have a person from Winnemucca and Battle Mountain and Austin, every small town in Nevada that has a mine nearby, repeat what Mr. Davis just said. I mean, it is vitally important to rural Nevada. In the absence of mining, we would have probably the worst poverty-stricken parts of the nation, because I had two counties in my district that didn't have mines, Esmeralda and Mineral, and they, to this day, are in extreme poverty, and we are praying that Ioneer kicks into gear here for Esmeralda County. And I know there's a new mine in Mineral County, too, and so they're hopefully they have a little trend going up. But no, I just want you guys to know how important you are to most of the geographical part of the state, maybe not the population total, and how much we sincerely appreciate all you do for our state. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, seeing no further questions, thank you so much for the presentation. Next, we'll be receiving a presentation from the Nevada Division of Minerals. Please welcome Administrator Vischer. Please come forward, press the microphone button, identify yourself for the record, and proceed with the presentation when ready.
Thank you, Chair Pazina, and thank you, committee members. My name is Mike Vischer, spelled V as in Victor, I-S-H-E-R, and I'm really happy to have the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about what our agency does. We're a small agency, but we cover a lot of ground, and I'd like you to kind of get to know us a little bit. So first off, the Commission on Mineral Resources is a 7-member body that's appointed by the governor for the knowledge and expertise in various facets of the mineral industry. That includes oil, gas, geothermal, as well as mining and exploration. The Commission directs mineral-related policy for the division, advises the governor and legislature on matters relating to mineral policy, and approves any regulations or changes charged to the division. The Commission is a non-cabinet executive branch, as defined in NRS 513. So the Nevada Division is a part of the Commission on Mineral Resources. We administer programs and activities for abandoned mine land public safety, minerals education, reclamation performance bond, and annual reporting of all mineral production in the state. We also act as a cooperating agency in federal land use planning analyses. In addition, the division is the regulatory agency for geothermal and oil and gas drilling and the production, as well as dissolved mineral resource exploration drilling. So think of lithium brine. The division has 2 offices, one in Carson City, one in Las Vegas. We have 11 FTEs. 8 of those are unclassified, kind of unique for state agencies. We get no general fund monies. Most of it comes from mining claim filings at the county, and that accounts for about 70 to 80% of all the revenue we receive. We also get some money from fluid mineral production and permit fees, and then we also get some grants and assistance agreements from the BLM, Park Service, and U.S. Forest Service. We do get a one-time surface disturbance fee for public land. That's issued by the BLM or NDEP. And our authorities are listed there. I'm not going to read those. Our biggest program and what we spend the most money on is our Abandoned Mines Public Safety Program. It's one that I started in nearly 18 years ago, and it's a feel-good program. But it's a big one that's tasked with a very daunting task, and that's to identify all the features in the state, over 300,000, that may pose a risk to the public for physical safety. And then trying to determine who owns them, if it's on private property, or if it's on a mining claim under state law, that person is responsible for putting up at a bare minimum a fence and a sign to warn the public about the hazard that is there. If there is no responsible party, then we are tasked with securing those. We go a little bit further. If the sites are near recreation areas, we might do more closure work, hard closures, so we fill them in. If it's on public land, we have to go through a NEPA process for that to make sure that our project in hard closing those doesn't impact significant biological habitat or cultural resources in the act of doing that work. The Abandoned Mines program is funded by $4 of the $10 that is filed or that comes from the county mining claim filing fees, and then also a $20 per acre fee for on public land for surface disturbance. So the work that gets done by not just us, it gets done by our contractors, it gets done by owners and claimants, as well as the feds and some Good Samaritans that are assisting with us. Most are located on federal land, so we work quite closely with the Forest Service and BLM to get the work done.
started in 1987. We're about halfway there with regards to the number of known hazards and anticipated hazards found. But we still have a lot of work to do, and now most of the low-hanging fruit is gone. So it takes more effort, more work to find the features that are further away from easy access. Currently, 83% of nearly 25,000 hazards have been secured. How do we take care of these things? Well, at a bare minimum, we just put a fence up and a sign. So that's the bottom right picture. But if we can get the money, if we can get coordination with the federal land agencies, we'll close these things for good as best we can. So the easiest thing is to take that pile of rock right next to the hole, push it in. Sometimes it's bat habitat, tortoise habitat. So if that's the case, then we're going to have to come up with an alternative closure that doesn't impact the biological habitat. So we have some bat grates that are designed to keep people out but allow the bats to fly in and out. If we're not allowed to interact with the surface because of maybe a head frame, timbers that are unique, we'll use expansive foam and cover it with dirt, and that seals it off and protects the public. So you can see the distribution of how we've done this work. And then the foreman shaft is a unique one. We just finished this one last year, over 2 years in the making. It was part of a very large project in Virginia City, which is a National Historic Landmark, which means you're not allowed to change the landscape in the effect that you can't push the dirt back in all the holes. So that poses a challenge and makes it quite difficult. So what we did was come up with a variety of closure methods, either filling it with fill that came from outside the landmark, or covering it with a grate. The Sutro Air Shaft, one of those, was covered with a grate. And these are ones that are right next to the Virginia City Grand Prix race route. But the foreman shaft was our pinnacle closure. This was a 5-compartment shaft, which was proposed to reach a depth of 4,250 feet. The main hoist building is quite large. The thing to note is if you look at the stonework there, all that stonework was cut by hand, chiseled. That's historic. We're not allowed to interact with that. So the archaeologists with the BLM, State Historic Preservation Office, we worked with them to come up with a design that would cover this without interacting with those blocks, but also protect the bat habitat for this shaft. So right now, you can see the foreman shaft, the work that was done. We actually had the contractor, Environmental Protection Services, they had to rent a sky crane to bring up these really large steel beams, put them in place. It took quite a while to get the work done, but at the end of the day, we had less than 120 square feet of surface disturbance at that site. And that final covering is quite robust. You can go up and stand on it. It's sturdy enough that the entire population of Virginia City could go stand on that. It allows you to see down it, the 165 feet that exists right now, to the bridge that's down below that. But this was quite an interesting undertaking that we just finished. Another project that was quite large as well, the Arden project in Clark County. This is one that was an old Roman pillar gypsum mine. It had been abandoned quite some time ago, but it had some challenging land status in that the BLM had the mineral estate, but the county had the surface. The county wanted to use the area for a regional hiking trail. The idea to have people hiking right next to these things, which historically had been used for camping, rock concerts, lots of filming, in an area that had not been anticipated to be used for public recreation at all. So we backfilled these, filled them up, covered up all of the openings. This was quite an effort to do. We did it with the Clark County as our partner to get it done, and used quite a few of the partners to assist with this. Because we did have homeless that were living in it, we had to get them vacated, find alternative places for them to stay. And then just the activity that we were doing was right next to a school and a housing development. Everybody wanted to come by and see what we were doing, which posed a risk to them as well. So we worked quite a bit with local officials to make sure we could get this one done. A little over $300,000 on this project, but got a lot of really good work done. You can see this anytime you fly into Las Vegas. You probably fly right over this. So oops, skipped one. Field work. We cover a lot of the state. Last year, this is the work that was done scattered throughout the state. Over 600 hazards inventoried, over 800 secured, nearly 1,400 hazards revisited. This is something to note. When we put a fence up, the fence isn't going to last forever. And what we found is the fence lasts about 5 years. Really just because of the nature of the weather, the environment in Nevada. It's pretty harsh, windy. The fences don't stand up. The signs are targets for shooters. So we end up having to go back out and revisit these things and repair them on the average about every 5 years. So the more fencing we do, the more revisits we do. That's why we want to try to limit those and get more of the hard closure work done as we can. We prioritize the work based on accessibility by the public, so near recreation trails. That includes off-road trails, hiking trails, bicycling trails, but also any parks and recreation areas. Anything that's going to become a point of interest that people are going to want to use, we try to get to those sites in advance. We have 8 summer interns that we hire generally in the summer, and about 3 to 4 over the winter during their breaks. They get a lot of work done. This is a great job for them. They make quite a bit of money, and they get to see the entire state, which is really good. These are usually sophomores, sometimes juniors in college, who may not have been exposed to the length and breadth and diversity of Nevada. So this is a great opportunity for them to see the state. We've developed a database of all these hazards that we can share with our partners to make sure that we're working collaboratively to secure these things. And now we have access to those if we have internet access in the field on digital tablets, built-in GPS, built-in cameras. The entire history of our program since 1987 is contained on each tablet. There's great strides and advancements. The hard closures, these permanent closures, okay, these are a lot more expensive. It does take a bit of a NEPA process, coordination with the land managers. So these take a little bit more planning, but we've got 7 that were concluded in 21, 3 in 22, including the Virginia City project. We have 5 to 6 projects planned for this year and 5 more the next year. Right now, our state contractor is Environmental Protection Services, and they do the bulk of these closures. Now to our regulatory side of things, fluid mineral resources. So whether the well is proposed on federal land or public land, we permit it. If it's on federal land, which almost all of the oil and gas wells are, we wait for the BLM to go through their NEPA process, issue the permit, and then we issue the permit. We work in lockstep to make sure that we're addressing the same issues, and whichever regulatory framework is the most stringent is what the operators have to adhere to. We also permit all the geothermal drilling in the state. So geothermal is about 60% on private, 40% on federal land. This is something that's growing quite a bit in the state, so we're seeing a lot more geothermal activity, a lot of interest in geothermal, and the last BLM lease sale was quite large, so we expect to see more permitting coming through. And then lastly, on the fluid mineral side is our lithium brine, dissolved mineral resource exploration stuff. So we permit the wells for lithium brine exploration. If they want to pump the water to test it for its constituents, they have to permit through us for that. If they just want to drill a borehole, that's temporary in nature, they're going to have to plug and abandon it within 60 days. They just have to issue a notice to us. But the biggest thing is, whether it's a borehole or a well, it has to be drilled by a licensed water well driller. Because they are impacting waters of the state, we want to make sure that waters of the state are protected. So a licensed water well driller is part of this process. But we do see quite a bit of increase in this. Over 22 permitted boreholes last year that were approved, and 14 wells. still see that expected to continue. Then these slides just kind of summarize where the activity is in the state. The lower graph on the left, bottom left, is the production. So production continues to decline. It's pretty steady, but we don't see a lot of interest in new exploration unless the price of oil is over $70. If it's less than that, probably not much interest. There is a lot of leasing that occurs in the state, but remember that leasing and purchasing a lease does not grant you the authority to drill a well. You still have to go through the permitting process and the NEPA process to drill an oil well. And then for geothermal, much more scattered around the state, some new technologies being applied that may make that even more widespread. Really interesting to see that. And the amount of production continues to increase. We're second in the U.S. to California for total production. Dissolved minerals. Just about every dry lake playa in the state has mining claims on it for lithium brine exploration. That represents about half of the total amount of lithium mining claims in the state, so probably about 35,000, we think, for mining claims. Expressed interest for lithium mining in the state, which continues to rise. So year over year, I think it was 42% increase in the number of mining claims for lithium. So continues to see that increase, and certainly the recent news will probably make that increase as well. It's good to note, though, that these mining claims, most of these were staked around 2010, 11, 12, and exploration has continued at a relatively slow pace until recently when on a national scale, everybody recognizes the importance for lithium in electrifying the nation. So they recognize where the lithium assets were. They're waiting for technologies to make those assets more viable. And as those come along, we'll see new mines coming on board. Our outreach efforts. Joe already talked about our earth science workshops. We co-host those with the Mining Association and a lot of volunteers, a lot of good work. We're putting together this stuff to make it easier for earth science education in the classrooms. We recognize that sometimes earth sciences are the topics that school teachers, especially elementary school teachers, are the least confident in teaching. So we're trying to make it easier for them to teach these concepts and give them as many of the materials so they don't have to go out and purchase them. And all of these are in line with the standards, science standards. We also do quite a bit of career fairs, and that's really to explain to students what are the opportunities in natural resources. As geologists, we came into it for certain reasons. We learned more about natural sciences and how interrelated they are, and how at a mine site, all these different technical skills are required in modern mining. And a lot of kids just don't understand the opportunities that are available to them. So we do quite a bit of outreach events and provide all this stuff free of charge to anybody that asks, classroom presentations, rocks and minerals, anything that we can do to help. A little bit more on those earth science workshops. So 69 workshops since 1984 held in 8 different counties. Quite a bit. We have quite a bit of repeat teachers that come in to learn something new, find it to be one of the best workshops that they've ever been to. Our next one is March 14th and 15th in Las Vegas, and then our summer one will be in Winnemucca, June 21st and 22nd. So during the pandemic, when we weren't allowed to go into classrooms and the kids weren't in the classrooms, how are we supposed to help educate them and continue to get into the classrooms? So staff created distance learning videos on their own, very passionate about getting the message out. And we have 20 different videos out there now on our website and our YouTube channel, touching on all sorts of topics, and everything from a 10-minute video to a 50-minute video on simple things like the rock cycle to geomorphology. Quite robust, and very proud of what the staff did to get this done. And then also some story maps using interactive web map services to help facilitate exchange of information. In 2022, 239 presentations were provided. Again, mostly K through 12 classrooms, but a lot of career fairs, and other outreach opportunities. And if you have a civic group that you'd like to have us present on mining, minerals, the mineral industry, please reach out to us. Lastly, our open data site. This is something that's new over the last couple years. It's a Esri product that allows you to create these sites to share information in an interactive web map tool. But you can also download all this information. You can download the information as Google Earth files to add to Google Earth if you want, Excel files if you want to engage with the data a little bit more. What we've done is taken all the historic data that we have and have access to and put it on these sites. If you want to know where every mining claim was ever located in the western U.S., we have a data site for that. If you want to know how much money the claimant paid in annual fees to keep it, we have that. Those are expressions of interest. If you want to know where people were spending a lot of time looking for minerals, this is a great tool. But we've aggregated all the information that we have since we keep track of the mineral production. This has become a really useful tool for land planning. If you're a state, federal, or county that's looking to maybe make some changes to your land use or zoning and would like to know what impacts there may have been or what the potential is for impacts, this is a great resource because it shows where production has occurred, where the mine sites have been, when they produced, what commodity they produced. If you want to search by employment, net proceeds, we have all that as well. So we're kind of a clearinghouse for mineral information. And lastly, not lastly, our mines registry, so we do capture all of the mineral production. Operators have until April 15th to report to us how much they produced and their employment for the prior year. And then we put out a Major Mines of Nevada booklet along with the Nevada Bureau of Mines and Geology. But we coordinate with the state mine inspector as well as the Department of Taxation to make sure that the information is being shared with all the agencies and is more or less in line with each agency. Mining claims. So we have Chapter 517 in our purview as well. This is really something that's helpful for the explorationists and the mining companies that continue to have claims is what's the procedure for holding your claim? What are the forms that are needed to file at the county for your expression of interest, if you will? So we have all this information in 517, and we work with the county recorders to make sure that the forms have everything that's required by statute, but also work with the counties to make sure that what's on the form can be put into their databases and their systems, and that everything is consistent with their requirements under their chapters. The reclamation bond pool, lastly, so we kind of have a pseudo insurance company that we run. This is a bank account that is set aside. It's filled with revenue from those that want to do work in Nevada at a notice level, so 5 acres or less. On BLM land, they can get an expedited bond through us. We have a $2.5 million statewide bond with the BLM. And so they provide us the total amount that's required under their notice from the BLM. They deposit that with us, and then we collect a 2% annual payment on that amount. And we can provide these bonds same day. It doesn't require a lengthy adjudication process. So this is really to expedite exploration. We also have a small bond pool for the plan level work. That's whether it's a NDEP plan of operation or whether it's a BLM plan of operation. It's really to assist the smaller miners that don't have a long history of production, finances, to get a bond and to limit the liability to the state in writing that bond. Right now, we've got about $2 million total in our bond pool, and we have in obligations in our bond pool, but we have $3 million in that account. So we have the ability to take on additional obligations at no liability to the state. And with that, I will conclude my testimony.
Thank you, Administrator. Do we have any questions from the committee? Senator?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One quick one. The $20 per disturbed acre, that isn't collected by the county. Who collects that and how's it distributed? And that's a one-time fee only, I believe.
Correct. Thank you for the question, Senator. That's a one-time fee.
Please state your name for the record, and
Mike
thank you.
Vischer for the record. That's a one-time fee that we invoice and we collect. And that money goes towards our AML securing program.
And those disturbed acres number would come from the operator, correct?
Mike Vischer for the record. That's correct, Senator. So it's tabulated, thankfully, by NDEP on the reclamation permit tables, public versus private, and this only affects publicly approved approved disturbance on public lands.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Am I allowed to go, Madam Chair? I saw you nod, but we got to put
Yes,
on the record.
please.
Actually, thank you for your presentation, very interesting. For those of us that grew up with Stanley Payer's Nevada ghost towns and mining camps, which I suspect is a lot of people in the audience, going to the ghost towns was some of the funnest things you can do when you go out for tourism in Nevada. When you guys are closing up these mine sites, you know, a lot of those have head frames and all that. And I noticed you said with the rock work you weren't allowed to disturb it, but some of the coolest spots in Nevada that I've ever been to are some of those old mines where you still have the head frames and, you know, the old buildings and stuff. How do you guys deal with that when you go to close up the entrances to the portals, basically?
Mike Vischer for the record. Thank you, Senator, for the question. So we work with BLM, the land manager, Forest Service, to come up with a proposal for securing that doesn't impact the cultural resources. It may mean that we use the puff closures. We will put a temporary bridge down the shaft, put foam in, dirt on top. It looks like it was just filled, but it doesn't actually impact any of the surface timbers or the head frames. We did a project out at the Broken Hills district where there's a head frame there and some very large open stopes that have quite a significant bat habitat. So in that case, grate was constructed over the entire length of the stope and all around the footings for the head frame, but not touching any of the head frame. So sometimes that can be challenging because the ground is not necessarily all that competent, so we may have to do some additional stability work to pin those in. But our goal is to preserve those as best we can, and that's done through the
I'm
NEPA
glad to hear
process.
that, because I was thinking you guys just don't go in and bulldoze it all down and plug the hole. Good. Last question, Ormat is building, now my district includes Gerlach and Black Rock Desert, Smoke Creek. There's some concern in Gerlach about Ormat's geothermal thing. Now, is that, you guys regulate that? Their
Mike Vischer
geothermal
for the
plant they're
record.
planning on building? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you for the question, Senator. We regulate the geothermal wells that are proposed, not the plant or the pipelines. So what we're regulating is that straw on the ground to make sure that it's designed in a way that it doesn't interact with potable waters of the state or create any issues with waters of the state. And then we track the production and injection quantities and temperatures to make sure that that resource is being managed properly, but we don't permit the plant itself.
As part of that process, so do you guys actually, you know, you had great boiling hot springs when Fremont discovered it way back when. When they start putting that plant together, are you guys doing something to protect that environmentally, to keep that boiling hot spring? It's been a landmark for almost 200 years now, actually. Just kind of wondering how you guys deal with that kind of stuff to help preserve that for the folks there in Gerlach.
Mike Vischer for the record. Thank you, Senator. So with regards to how any surface features or springs are potentially impacted, they're going to have to come through with enough information on water modeling, hydrology, fate and transport models with regards to what they're proposing to do as part of the NEPA process. All of those studies are done in advance of the actual drilling of those wells. And after each well, they're going to gain and refine that model with regards to how can we interact with the geothermal resource without affecting that geothermal spring that's at the surface.
Good. So you
So,
guys do
yeah,
have a
we're
way of
looking to
doing
make
that.
sure that those two are isolated from each other and not impacted in any way.
Very good, because that was a major concern for the little tiny town of Gerlach. It's in my district. I'm watching out for them. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Administrator. Do we have any further questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much for your presentation. Our final order of business today is public comment. As a reminder, public comment is limited to 2 minutes per person, but please feel free to submit additional written comments to the secretary and they will be added to the record. Is there any public comment here in Carson City? Please come up to the front, press the microphone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Patrick Donnelly, Great Basin Director at the Center for Biological Diversity. I'm going to be a popular guy, the environmentalist speaking first on Mining Day. I share Senator Hansen's affinity for going out and checking out some old mines in the desert. That's a fun activity. And it's worth noting that the old mines we all love checking out in the desert are a completely different thing from the mines of today. And so there's kind of this message given that mining no longer impacts the environment the way it once did. And I think that's just not the case, especially when it comes to wildlife, which is what I focus on in my work. We can see significant impacts to wildlife from mining across the state. When I first got here 6 years ago, the state's leading sage-grouse biologist pulled me aside and said, you got to do something about Thacker Pass. For sage-grouse biologists, their number one issue was what's going to happen to that sage-grouse habitat up at Thacker Pass. And that continues to be a subject that is, they just announced today, they're appealing that lawsuit to the Ninth Circuit. That's not something we're involved in. But the point is there is great contention over the impacts of that particular mine to greater sage-grouse. There are other mines with sage-grouse impacts. Barrick's Gold Rush mine is going to potentially impact a significant hub of genetic connectivity for greater sage-grouse. The South Railroad project may put as many as 6 active sage-grouse leks at the bottom of an open pit, which would be an unprecedented level of destruction from a single mine. Long Canyon mine expansion near Wendover has the potential to drive the relict dace, a rare fish, extinct. The Rhyolite Ridge mine has the potential to drive a rare wildflower, Team's buckwheat, extinct. Anglo Gold's operations near Beatty have the potential to drive a rare toad, the Amargosa toad, extinct. It goes on and on and on. And this isn't to say all mining is bad. We need mining. My cell phone here, I'm looking at my notes on, was produced by mining and the lithium came from mining. But we need to understand that the current regulatory structure for mining permits really unacceptable levels of impacts to wildlife and to biodiversity. And so if we're going to resolve that.
Thank you so much for
thank
so
you.
many speakers. We are keeping it to 2 minutes per person. If anyone would like to come up to the table, we'll just keep bringing people up as you come. And for the next speaker, thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. I am Amanda Hilton, Hilton, the General Manager of the Robinson Nevada Mining Company, Nevada's largest operating copper mine in White Pine County. Of the 9,700 White Pine County residents, Robinson directly employs over 600 people, which equates to approximately 15% of the workforce. These are jobs with high wages and high-quality health insurance. 3 mines in White Pine County comprise 46% of the total assessed value for the county. To summarize, mining is the economic engine in our county, and it has been for over 150 years. As one of the key minerals in the green energy economy, the demand for copper continues to increase. Every electric vehicle requires more than 130 pounds of copper. Copper is also a key mineral in the manufacturing of solar panels and construction materials. We are proud that we get to be a significant contributor in the green energy transition. Our most important value is zero harm. This means zero harm to our people, the environment, and the community in which we operate. We take this commitment very seriously, and we welcome all of you to visit our mine site so that you can see the work we're doing in this space. Thank you all for your service to this state and your continued support of this important industry for rural Nevada.
And committee, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for your commitment to public service and for having us here today. My name is Steve Cochran, C-O-C-H-R-A-N-E. I am the United States Sales Manager for Cyanco, which is a sodium cyanide manufacturer in Winnemucca, Nevada. 1990, we started the first sodium cyanide plant to support the gold and silver industry in the state and the region. We've grown since then to be the largest supplier of sodium cyanide to the mining business in the world. And if you referenced Mr. Vischer's slide earlier on production value slide, gold and silver represent a huge production value in the state, and that industry would not exist if it were not for the use of sodium cyanide in manufacturing. And the efforts that the industry has gone to over years in order to safely manufacture, transport, and promote the safe use at mine sites is demonstrated by the International Cyanide Management Code, which many sites throughout the state are members of, which is a world-class standard above and beyond regulatory standards for safe manufacture use and, transportation and use of sodium cyanide. I lived in Winnemucca for 32 years and would echo Senator Hansen's comments about the positive impact to rural Nevada and being able to raise a family in a wonderful environment provided by the mining industry.
Good afternoon, committee. My name is Ryan Snow, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer for i-80 Gold Corp. I've been in mining for 17 years and currently serve on the Nevada Mining Association Board of Directors. My family of 5 and I live in Reno, where i-80 has our corporate headquarters. i-80 is a startup company founded in April of 2021. We're growing, and it's an exciting time at the company. We acquired the idle mill, autoclave, and pit lake at Lone Tree outside of Golconda, making us one of only 3 companies with autoclave facilities in Nevada. We're currently examining the feasibility of putting this mill and autoclave facility back in use, which will allow us to process material from our mine sites at Granite Creek, McCoy Cove, and Ruby Hill. As the company grows, i-80 is here to support Nevada families with jobs and investment across the state. We currently employ 114 Nevadans in our rural communities of Winnemucca, Battle Mountain, and Eureka. Our employees are active members of these communities and shop, dine, and often volunteer their time to community efforts. Annually, i-80 injects millions of dollars in wages and benefits into these communities. Additionally, we invest in Nevada by using hundreds of Nevada-based contractors. Thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about i-80 Gold today.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Alyssa Wood. I am the head of corporate social responsibility for Barrick North America. At Nevada Gold Mines, which is operated by Barrick, proactively managing sustainability is in our DNA. We recognize that to be successful, we have an obligation to be responsible stewards of the environment, good neighbors, and conscientious community partners. Our approach is simple. We foster solid, long-term relationships with community stakeholders that are built upon trust, transparency, respect, and partnership. These relationships constitute our social license to operate and are critical to our business model. Our LTO is managed through 4 primary methods to ensure that contributions made are effective now as well as sustainable long-term. The first is through engagement. At NGM, we make a point to collaborate with and learn from community and tribal leaders, businesses, and employees to gain insight into community needs. It's through partnership. NGM fosters relationships between community members and nonprofits, small businesses, schools, and local groups in order to maximize the economic and social benefits of our contributions and to encourage philanthropy in others. It's through investment. Our business model focuses on sourcing goods, services, and employment locally. In 2022, NGM's business expenses, including local tax contributions, totaled $2.7 billion. And then lastly, it's through sustainability. In 2022, NGM contributed $17.9 million to community programs and initiatives, the majority of which were aimed at long-term sustainability. Central to our operations is a commitment to being profitable in a socially responsible way. We understand the importance of adding value to the communities and state where we live and where we operate.
Madam Chairman and committee, I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you today. My name is Kevin Martindale. I'm with Mill Creek Engineering. I'm the Director of Business Development. And I put two hats on of being able to come to you as the sentiments that have been stated here. I participate in some of these community events that they fund. I live out in a rural area of Spring Creek, Nevada, and Nevada Gold Mines has given us the opportunity to bring high-speed internet to our area that we did not have before with fiber optic. They've also are working on natural gas, bringing natural gas out to our area. You know, that's a commodity that a lot of people don't quite understand, that rural Nevada does not always have that. We run everything off propane, so I appreciate all of the amount of investment they have given to our communities. And then also on the engineering side, you know, I want to echo a lot of the sentiments that were stated here today. But, you know, most of these mines, before they ever do any kind of activity, they do a pre-feasibility, a feasibility study to determine, you know, the economics, the environmental impact, and also the community impact. So it's not something that they just willy-nilly just jump right into. They go into very valid, you know, statements and look at what it's going to cause, you know, the effect of the environment, the community, and all those around. So I commend them on those. We've helped with several of those feasibility studies, and you know, they are all on, you know, environmental and engineering practices that you know, serve all of us as they continue on. So thank you for my opportunity to address you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Madam Chairman, Committee, Samantha Fonga, Kinross, Nevada, Corporate Social Responsibility Specialist. We're going to mining speed date really quick, 2 minutes. You're going to have to cut me off. I'm just letting you know there's too much to talk about. So at Kinross, Nevada, we talked about mining Las Vegas for talent. I really want to make sure I touch on that with you guys in that initiative. So life is hard. Times are hard. In our rural communities and our urban communities. And when mining partners with stakeholders and communities, people get to exhale. And so for Nevada Careers, we went into these underserved communities and we got to provide jobs. We got to provide opportunities. We got to provide safety and security when there was none. And that's what mining does, whether it's partnering with our local Jobs for Nevada graduates. So I have this saying, we have this saying at Kinross, Nevada, it's every corner, every county, every community. That's who we impact, not just our local benefit footprint, but every county gets to have some kind of impact from mining. So we team up with the Job for Nevada Graduates program, and we work with students. We provide scholarships. We work with UNLV and have a lecture series. We work with UNR, and we sponsor a professorship. We make sure we spread that across our state. And how we do that is through education and the opportunity. We can talk about tax dollars. We can talk about all of that. But when you're struggling to pay your power, when you're struggling to put food on the table, that doesn't mean anything to you. What means something to you is when we come to your community and we say, hey, we can give your son or daughter a trade and a scholarship and make that happen. Or we can team up with Nevada Partners and Nevada Careers and Nevada Mining Association, and we can give you a career making $95,000 a year when you otherwise didn't have a vehicle. That's so powerful. That means so much. And again, that makes us be able to tell our communities they can exhale because we have you. In a world that's just so business, so corporate, like when can we just exhale and say, hey, we're a part of a team, and somebody has your back and somebody will take care of you. And that's Kinross, and that's also mining in general. We take care of people. I knew you were going to cut me off. I told you. Speed dating done. Thank you, guys.
Hello, my name is Allison Anderson. I'm proud to be the Community and Government Affairs Manager at I-80 Gold. It has been a privilege to work in Nevada's mining industry over the last 4 years. This industry is filled with, obviously, a lot of really passionate, hardworking, and forward-thinking folks who care about their neighbors, our resources, and the future of Nevada. I also currently serve as the chair of the Nevada Mining Association's Education Committee, so that's the workshops that we host twice a year, bring K through 12 teachers together, teach them about ways they can bring earth science to the classroom. I-80 Gold is a uniquely Nevadan company with 4 operations here in northern Nevada. As the company name may have implied, we're mining for gold, and our operations are located along Interstate 80, specifically between Battle Mountain, Winnemucca, and extending over to Ruby Hill in beautiful Eureka, Nevada. In just a month and a half, we will celebrate our 2-year anniversary, and we have much to be proud of. Above all, I want to highlight our commitments to people, providing quality jobs, keeping our employees and contractors safe, and participating in the communities we live and work in. We currently employ 114 people and continue to foster an environment of diversity and inclusion. In fact, women comprise 34% of our workforce. I am proud to be one of them, and this job helps me to support myself and my 3 children. I-80 Gold is committed to sustainable development and environmental stewardship during exploration and extraction of mineral resources. As we continue to grow our team and our operations, our top priorities are safety and maintaining the environmental and economic well-being of our partner communities. Thank you again for hosting us for Mining Day.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Nancy Egan. I'm from Nevada Gold Mines, the Native American Affairs Manager. NGM has been a standout company when it comes to leading the way for Native engagement within the industry. In fact, NGM has had a team dedicated to ensuring transparent engagement, long-term sustainability, and partnership with the Great Basin tribes for the past 15 years. The collaborative agreement formed between MGM and our 10 partnering tribes shows the company's dedication to understanding and preserving the Native way of life. In 22 alone, NGM invested $3.5 million into various tribal community initiatives, including the Nuuanuma Scholarship Foundation, which was established in 2008 and has been able to support countless Native American students through their post-secondary education. Since its inception, $6.4 million, equaling 2,353 scholarships, have been awarded. Other noteworthy tribal community initiatives include the Elder Energy Assistance Program, providing heating costs to elders, the Summer Youth Employment Program, the NNSF Internship Program, as well as the Nuuanuma Native American mural, which visually honored the Native American culture. Additionally, an internal mandatory NGM employee cultural awareness training program was created in collaboration with our partner tribes to ensure the awareness and understanding of the history, the challenges that the Native Americans have faced, and the policies and procedures NGM follows regarding the discovery of cultural artifacts. One of the many ways Native American Department remains active is through NA community engagements, hosting quarterly dialogue meetings. NGM senior leadership attends these meetings to ensure the company is fully invested in developing and providing sustainable long-term benefits for its 10 partnering communities.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else here in Carson City who'd like to speak during public comments?
Madam Chair, my name is Frederick Pate.
Please turn on your microphone, and thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Frederick Pate. I'm the environmental manager for Robinson Mine. And I'm here to talk about some of the things that people perceive about mining and what they've seen in the past. When I got to Robinson about 8-9 years ago, there were things that were done in the past, mining that had happened in the past, happened in the mid-50s, and therefore a lot of people saw mining as an eyesore. I want to talk about how current mining practices at Robinson has been used to clean up all the legacy issues that have been left behind. And to me, that is amazing that giving Robinson the license to operate has allowed them to clean up all these legacy sites. If you go to the mine today, it's amazing what has happened between the last 10 years and trying to take care of these legacy issues. I want to actually take the opportunity, I know some of you probably have visited the mine, but I want to take the opportunity to invite the Senate, our Natural Resource Committee, if you get opportunity to visit the mine, and you will be able to see how modern practices in mining have been able to be used to clean these legacy issues. And today, that is still providing a lot of employment to the people in White Pine County. And I think Amanda talked about it a little bit, and I just want to echo that this has helped the community a great deal. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Any other public comment here in Carson City?
Madam Chair and committee, I know we're holding you guys up from finishing. I appreciate your time very much. My name is Randy Miller. I'm the Vice President of Broadbent Associates, and we're an environmental consulting firm. We employ about 120 people, most of which are in Nevada. Our firm was started in Boulder City. I just wanted to say a few words about how important mining is to our company and all of our families that we employ. We provide due diligence and compliance and remediation services to the mines and many other industries in the state. And most of our folks are in Reno and in Las Vegas, and I think that there's a misconception, I think, sometimes about how the mines really just affect rural Nevada, and that's not the case. Our work and our employees are across this entire state, and it's very important to us. I just wanted to thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. If there's no further comment in Carson City, BPS, is there anyone wishing to provide public comment on the phone lines?
Thank you, Chair. If you'd wish to speak in public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 809. We can see you're unmuted. Please continue.
Thank you. My name is Mary Kerner, and I am the wife of a miner in White Pine County. I also have a son who is a miner in Elko County, and today I speak as the CEO of the Rural Nevada Development Corporation out here in White Pine. I am proud of Nevada Mining not only for the many jobs and careers they offer throughout our state, but also for the corporate and social responsibility programs, from promoting employee volunteerism to the many ways they give to their employees' communities. I can't list all the ways today, but just a few examples to note. The mine here in White Pine County purchases thousands of dollars in local chamber bucks for employee incentive and awards programs. These dollars are then recycled back into the community, promoting a Shop Local program. Another big example is Nevada Gold Mines in Elko County. They seeded the I-80 fund with a $5 million contribution to my agency to manage this fund. It is an amazing economic development tool in the 4 counties in the north part of Nevada. Over $6.3 million in small business loans have been lent, with 125 jobs created and 207 jobs retained. Mining in Nevada has helped fund education, large-scale broadband projects, daycare facilities, environmental and health programs, cultural, heritage, and much more. I value the partnerships our mines have with our system of higher education, not just with the scholarships, but the summer internships for high school students, the science programs offered in middle and elementary schools as well. Mining isn't just a career, it is a way of life. The economic development spurred by mining the minerals in our state is hugely important to Nevada's economic health overall, and I am proud to be connected to the Nevada mining community. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee.
Thank you so much. BPS, is there anyone else on the phone who'd like to make public comment?
Yes, Chair. We have a total of 7 callers. Queuing them up right now. Thank you.
Hello, this is John Hatter. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you very much. My name is John Hatter, Hadder. I am the Director of Great Basin Resource Watch. We're a public interest organization here in Nevada that works with communities to protect their land, air, water, and cultural values from negative effects of mining. And I encourage everyone on the committee, you all are part of the law system, the regulation of the mining industry, to look for other sources of information in addition to the mining industry and their employees to find out what's really happening on the ground, who's affected, and how our laws can be improved. But let me give you a short example. You heard a presentation about mining pit lakes, and you were told that the pit lakes are groundwater, part of the groundwater system. Well, if that is actually true, what they didn't tell you is that most mining pit lakes are actually of lower water quality than the surrounding groundwater, which would mean that as water infiltrates into the pit lake, it becomes degraded, which is a violation of state law. There's a hole in our system. We do not have a clearly, mining pit lakes are not a closed issue. They're not fully dealt with. So again, I do appreciate the time to comment, and I encourage you to look for those directly affected by the mining industry as well to get comments, and organizations like ours are happy to come anytime and talk to folks in the legislature about what we're understanding about mining and its effects on the environment and in communities. Thank you very much for this time.
Thank you. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 466, please continue.
Hi, my name is Joni Eastley. I'm a 39-year resident of Nye County, currently living in Tonopah, a former 3-term county commissioner, and a former 14-year proud member of the Nevada mining industry. There has been an accepted thought that mining contributes little to sustained economic growth, but I know this to be absolutely untrue. Without mining, the products we use every day simply would not exist. Mining plays a crucial role in everything from transportation to communication, medical technology, defense, and renewable energy. The industry is an important stakeholder in our country's economic progress and our ability to be self-sufficient. In fact, in my opinion, it is probably one of the most important factors that influence the survival of all other industries. Having been a resident of 2 mining towns, I have seen and experienced firsthand the industry's support of their employees and nearby communities. It is my pleasure to offer them my support in return. Thank you for the opportunity this afternoon.
Thank you so much. BPS, we're ready for our next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 513, please continue.
My name is Lucia Maya with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada, reading a comment on behalf of Carmen Gonzalez, environmental specialist, bringing attention to the impacts of the mining industry experienced by the indigenous communities in the state of Nevada. Presently, tribes across Nevada are standing in strong opposition to the Thacker Pass lithium mine in Humboldt County. In addition to detrimental impacts to water and air quality and ecosystems from proposed mining activity, the mine is to be located on land that is sacred to the Paiute and Shoshone people. The ability of Native people to practice traditional life ways, pray, and gather medicine and food will be impacted by the mine. The Yankton Paiute tribe have deeply been impacted by copper mine activities that have been taking place near tribal lands. Water pollution, including uranium and arsenic, has extended to the tribal reservation and has caused the tribe to require that bottled water be provided in place of domestic water supply due to contamination. Cleanup activities required at the site meant that is originally was intended to be listed on the national priorities list as a Superfund site. Cleanup activities are now overseen by the state of Nevada. The tribe still does not have clean source of domestic water due to contamination at this site. It is not only mining activities that the Nevada tribes are concerned about, but the processing of mine materials also pose a threat to human life and environments across the state, as well as on tribal lands. As decisions are being made, I urge you to consider the current and long-term impacts of mining on the Native peoples of this state and on the health of watersheds and ecologies that we all depend on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. BPS, we're ready for our next public comment.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Sarah Walkley, W-O-C-H-E-L-E, and I'm the mining justice organizer with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada. Here at PLAN, we believe that everyone has the right to live in a clean and healthy environment, regardless of their race, gender, income, or where in the state they live. Addressing our dependence on an extractive economy is central to our environmental justice campaign. It is important as we discuss our state's extractive economies that we also talk about the communities that are negatively impacted by mining and the lack of meaningful input from them in the process. Just recently, Reno Sparks Indian Colony, Burns Paiute Tribe, and the Summit Lake Paiute Tribe filed an additional federal lawsuit alleging that the Bureau of Land Management withheld information, quote, lied about the extent of tribal consultation in order to secure legally required concurrence about historic properties, end quote, and misled the tribes about other aspects of the proposed lithium mining at Thacker Pass, a location of spiritual and cultural significance known as Bihimaha. Today, you have heard one side of the story related to the mining industry, but it is essential that all frontline communities be consulted and included in these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. BPS, we're ready for our next public comment.
Caller with the last three digits of 931, you can continue.
Thank you so much, committee. My name is Cassandra Lisenby. I'm a member of Great Basin Resource Watch. I would like to share to this committee, one, I also believe that the information that you should be receiving is a little bit more diversified. It has been heavily skewed towards one direction as the Nevada Mining Association has their views, but as we all know, diversity of information is the best way to move forward together. One of the things I really want to point out is from the Division of Minerals presentation about their abandoned mine closures. First off was how many mine features are abandoned across Nevada due to poor permitting and environmental regulations. And one of the other things was that full closure was usually determined by backfilling rock material back into the pit or filling it with foam, as fences in our harsh Nevada climate only last about 5 years. We are asking for pit lakes for permanent closure of mine sites, for the hole to be backfilled at its full extent, and for fences to be taken down so reclamation of water and land can be available for all Nevadans. You'll probably have to cut me off. I would like to switch into a personal comment. I am from a mining community. I have family out in Elko, Nevada, and I would like to urge the committee to think about mining communities past just how much money they can make while they're healthy. My family has unfortunately seen a lot of sickness in it as I believe a result of working on tailings facilities for many years of their lives, which have large air pollution and cyanide leaching. So I explore the committee to think about, as we talk about education, as we talk about mining, we need to be talking about
Thank you so much for your comments.
environmental
That is 2
protection
minutes.
in terms of our workers.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That is 2 minutes. BPS, our next public comment, and thank you.
Caller with the last three digits of 765, please continue.
Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Mary Gibson. I am NUA, or Western Shoshone. I am also the director of NUA Knowledge Center, a cultural preservation organization. I am here today to talk about the Western Shoshone and our connection to Nuwa Sogovia, the Western Shoshone's Earth Mother. The city of Elko, as with numerous rural towns and mining operations in Nevada, occupy land within the boundaries of Western Shoshone unceded ancestral territory. Unfortunately for the Western Shoshone, the federal government gradually assumed control of Western Shoshone lands through its precedent and racist laws benefiting the theft of land, the doctrine of discovery. The Western Shoshone have lived upon these lands since time immemorial. Our ancestors were here long before the United States. Our spiritual and religious beliefs center on the natural world. The Western Shoshone consider all forms of life as our relatives. Mining causes so much destruction to the land, water, and environment. My elders have told me that the land, Mother Earth, is female. With this teaching, I equate the mining industry as the colonial power to assault, maim, and rape our Earth Mother. Heavy machinery like bulldozers dig into the soul of a living being, dynamiting blasts our mother's body, and then removes her soul and spirit, raped, wounded, sick, and dying. In a world of patriarchy adorned with power, money, greed, and sex, this is what colonization of indigenous land and peoples looks and feels like. Water, our precious life source, our medicine, our relative, is impacted by mining. We live in one of the most arid states in the nation. We are experiencing decades of drought, and yet mining companies can waste, poison, alter, and divert our water systems. During
Thank
the
you
summer
so
drought,
much.
Nevada
Thank you
citizens
so
have
much
asked
for your comment. It has gone a bit
amount
over
of
2
water
minutes,
use.
and we're just trying to give
Wow.
everyone an opportunity to speak. But thank you so much for sharing. And BPS, I believe you mentioned we have another public comment.
Caller with the last three digits of 733, please continue. Caller with the last three digits of 733, is it possible that you are muted on your end?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please
Hello?
continue. Go ahead.
My name is Fermina Stevens, and I am the director of the Western Shoshone Defense Project in Elko, Nevada. Over the past 30 years, we have been striving to protect land and water for future generations. We have been to the U.S. Supreme Court and on to the United Nations on the elimination of racial discrimination, who determined the taking of Western Shoshone territory was done without due process and in violation of our human rights. In short, the 1863 Treaty of Ruby Valley is still in full force and effect. Since the coming of white man nearly 200 years ago, my people have watched destruction of food and water sources, and this destruction has increased over the past 50 years or so with new technology and bigger machinery. We all know that clean mining is not clean when it destroys the environment. It looks like Nevada is a hot spot for mining these days and will increase. While we can appreciate the importance of economic value of mining, there should be more emphasis, thought, and caring put into the protection of plant and animal life. Without water and a healthy environment, money means nothing. Without healthy land, air, water, and spirit, there is no life. As I understand it, the state of Nevada does not have a clear or updated data on the amount of groundwater there is in our drought-stricken state. It is irresponsible to continue this increased mining that in the long run only benefits the government, corporate America, and foreign corporations. When the water is gone, who will be left with the polluted land? The Western Shoshone people, because we have nowhere else to go. This is our home. Many claim to love Nevada, but knowingly destroying the environment is not love. In conclusion, you are mining within Western Shoshone territory. Our treaty is still in full force and effect, and we are here to protect land and water for future generations of all people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. BPS, do we have any further public comment?
Chair, you have no more callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Seeing no further public comment, that concludes our meeting. The meeting is adjourned.